What would you think if the wildest creature in the high plains, one no cowboy alive, could get within 10 feet of suddenly bowed its head to a quiet native girl? No one truly understood. On a ranch torn by fences shattered in the night and livestock fleeing in fear, the greatest horseman in the region met his match in a stallion black as storm clouds and twice as dangerous. Every rope failed. Every trick collapsed. Every cowboy walked away bruised, humbled, or shaken. Then she appeared barefoot, soft-spoken, carrying nothing but an ancient calm, and the beast the whole valley feared became still as breath itself. But if a child can reach a spirit, no adult can tame? What else in our world have we mistaken for fury when it was really a cry to be understood? Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe. Cole Mercer smelled trouble long before he stepped off his horse. Hawthorne Ranch sat quiet under the late afternoon sun, but it wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that hummed with tension and unease hanging over the corrals like storm clouds that hadn't broken yet. Ranch hands moved with jumpy precision, glancing toward the far pen as though something in there might erupt at any moment. Jesse Hawthorne strode out from the barn hat, low eyes tight. "Glad you came, Cole," he said, gripping the reins of Cole's gelding. "I wouldn't have called you if it wasn't bad." Cole swung down and scanned the property. Broken fence rails piled beside the shed, hoof marks gouged deep into the dry dirt, and a feeding trough crushed as if stomped by a creature too angry or too terrified to care what it destroyed. "Looks like a tornado came through," he muttered. "Not a tornado." Jesse pointed toward the far paddock. "A horse." Cole lifted an eyebrow. "A horse did all that. Not just any horse." "You'll see." Jesse didn't need to explain further. Cole had been summoned because people believed he could read a horse better than he could read a newspaper. Cole Mercer wasn't just good with horses, he was the best cowboy for 5 counties, the one ranchers called when every other expert had failed. Still, as he walked with Jesse toward the paddock, even he felt a strange tightness in his chest, a subtle warning that this wouldn't be a straightforward job. The moment he saw the stallion, he understood why. The animal stood in the center of the pen like a living shadow, coal-black, impossibly still, with a presence so sharp it seemed to cut the air around him. He was large, larger than any Mustang Cole had seen. But it wasn't the size that unsettled him. It was the eyes. Bright, piercing, intelligent in a way that made Cole pause mid-step. "That's him," Jesse whispered. "Been tearing up half the ranch." The stallion shifted just enough to look at them, and Cole felt the strange, uncomfortable sensation of being evaluated, not watched, judged. The horse's ears flicked forward, then pinned back, then forward again, as if he understood the conversation without hearing a word. Cole stepped closer, slow and steady. The stallion matched the movement with a single step of his own, not backward as any normal spooked horse would, but sideways, fluid and deliberate, like a predator circling. He dropped his head only an inch, but the muscles along his neck tightened into warning cords. A hoof struck the ground with force enough to shake dust loose from the rails. Riley Morgan jogged up beside Cole, still holding a bruised arm against his ribs. "You might want to be careful," he said grimly. "I tried to ease up to him this morning. Brought apples, water, the whole deal. He nearly kicked my lungs out." Another ranch hand overheard and lifted his shirt to show a dark, ugly bruise across his abdomen. "Got this 2 days ago. I swear he moved faster than any horse I've ever seen." Cole nodded, eyes still locked on the stallion. He watched the animal pace the fence line, each movement quick, precise, never random. The stallion wasn't wild. He was calculating. "That's not fear," Cole murmured. "That's strategy. That's what scares me." Jesse exhaled. "We can't keep livestock safe with that thing roaming free." Margaret Hawthorne arrived with a jug of water, stopping beside them with a worried frown. "Some of the red feather folks say he's a spirit horse," she said softly. "Said they hadn't seen one in years, but if one shows up, something bad's coming." Cole huffed a faint laugh. "Spirits don't break fences, Margaret." She gave him a look that said she wished he wouldn't be so sure. Even as they spoke, the stallion kept moving, never settling, never letting his guard drop. Cole stepped forward, testing his approach. Immediately, the stallion's head snapped toward him, eyes narrowing to slits. Cole froze, heart thumping harder than he liked to admit. For one absurd moment, he felt the way a rookie cowboy might feel facing down his first bull, aware that one wrong twitch could be disastrous. He took another step. The stallion cut across the pen in a blur of black muscles, slamming both front hooves into the corner rail so hard it shuddered. Cole stumbled back. Dust spiraled up around his boots. "That's the third rail he's cracked today," Riley whispered. But then, just as Cole was reevaluating whether anyone could safely contain this animal, the paddock fell silent. Too silent. And that's when the girl appeared. A slender figure no more than 11 years old slipped through the side gate of the paddock without making a sound. Her long black hair swayed against a simple woven shirt, and her bare feet padded softly across the dirt. She moved like someone who had never learned to fear anything she loved. Ayanna Margaret gasped. "Sweetheart, get out of there," every ranch hand froze. Cole lunged forward, but Jesse grabbed his arm. "Don't spook the horse," Cole thought. The girl should be sprinting for her life. But Ayanna Redfeather didn't run. She didn't even look nervous. She walked straight into the paddock with the calm of someone approaching a friend. Spirit Walker, the raging tempest from seconds earlier, stopped cold. His ears eased forward. The tremor along his neck softened. The air around him seemed to change temperature, quieting, as though all the tension had been sucked out of the world in one deep breath. Ayanna lifted her hand, palm open, but not reaching for him. And the stallion stepped toward her, not aggressively, not defensively, but with a careful, almost reverent slowness, the way a wild animal might approach a source of water after days in the desert. He lowered his head until his muzzle hovered just above the girl's hand. No one dared exhale. Cole felt something twist inside him. Part disbelief, part awe, and part bruised pride. In all his years, he had never seen a connection formed so instantly, so effortlessly, without any technique or horsemanship trick. It wasn't training. It wasn't dominance. It was recognition. Ayanna finally spoke, her voice soft but steady. "He's not dangerous," she said, looking only at the stallion. "He's scared." Cole's breath caught. The ranch hands exchanged stunned glances. Jesse rubbed a hand over his face, speechless. Ayanna didn't look at any of them. She kept her attention on the stallion, who now stood quietly before her, breathing in slow, controlled waves, as if her presence had given him permission to rest. For the first time since arriving at the ranch, Cole felt truly outmatched, but not in a way that bruised his pride. In a way that cracked something open inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Humility. The next morning arrived cooler than expected, a faint gray dawn stretching across the prairie like a held breath. Cole was pouring coffee in the Hawthorne's kitchen when the sound of gravel crunching under worn tires drifted through the open window. Jesse leaned in to look. "Red feather vehicle," he muttered. "Guess they're here for the girl." Cole followed him outside. A dusty maroon SUV rolled to a stop beside the porch, its paint faded by years of desert sun. The engine clicked softly as it cooled. Elder Nathan Redfeather stepped out slowly, leaning on a wooden cane adorned with beads and feathers aged by time. His presence carried the weight of long memories, the kind that didn't need announcing. "Ayanna," he called gently. The girl slipped out of the barn a moment later, brushing hay from her sleeves. Nathan gave Jessie an apologetic nod. She shouldn't have come here yesterday. That was my mistake. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. But before Jessie could respond, Nathan's eyes drifted toward the paddock where Spirit Walker stood. And something changed in him, like a candle catching flame. He walked closer, stopping several yards away. Even from that distance, the old man's breath hitched. "So it's true," Nathan whispered. "I hoped it wouldn't be." Cole frowned. "You know this horse." Nathan didn't take his eyes off Spirit Walker. "One does not know a spirit horse," he said softly. "One recognizes it." Jessie folded his arms, impatient. "Elder Nathan, with all due respect, that animal has damaged half my property. It nearly killed a ranch hand yesterday." "That animal," Nathan interrupted calmly, "is not to be feared, Mr. Hawthorne. He is to be respected." He shifted his gaze toward Cole. "And he is not here by accident." Cole opened his mouth but found no words. Nathan turned back to Ayanna and gave her a small, knowing nod. It was almost imperceptible, an exchange of understanding between the two. One Cole couldn't decipher, but felt was important. A chill crept up Cole's arms. Something was shifting beneath the surface of this story, something older and stranger than a wild stallion gone rogue. Later that morning, as the sun climbed higher and warmed the ranch yard, Nathan sat on the porch while Cole and Jessie listened. Ayanna stood beside him, quiet eyes fixed on Spirit Walker, as if still hearing whatever she had heard the day before. Spirit horses, Nathan began, appear only when the land is unsettled. They do not come for people. They come for balance. His voice carried a rhythm, a cadence that made the world around them seem to slow. They cannot be broken by rope or by force. They choose who may walk near them, and they choose with more wisdom than any of us possess. Jessie sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "With respect, Elder, we've got a ranch to run, not a legend to uphold." Nathan smiled faintly. "Legends are truths wrapped in memory." Cole stayed quiet, arms folded, but his attention was sharper than ever. He had watched Ayanna calm Spirit Walker with nothing but presence and breath. He had watched a creature of raw power drop its guard because a child walked toward it. His cowboy instincts clawed for logical explanations, but something in him, something buried, knew there was more. Ayanna stood still as a stone under the morning sun. Her fingers lightly touched the edge of her belt, tapping in a soft, rhythmic pattern, as if listening for something inside herself. Cole noticed the habit again, the same one she had yesterday before stepping into the stallion's pen. Nathan continued. "These horses respond to those who hear the wind beyond noise, those who listen with the heart, not with fear or pride." His eyes flicked meaningfully toward Cole, though not unkindly. "You felt him watching you yesterday, judging your intent?" Cole didn't deny it. Before the conversation could deepen, shouting erupted near the pines. One of the ranch hands came sprinting toward them, breathless. "Sheriff's on his way. Someone filed a report about property damage and a dangerous animal." Jessie muttered a curse under his breath. "That'll be Granger. He's gonna have opinions." Minutes later, Sheriff Tom Granger's truck pulled up, dust swirling behind him. He stepped out stiffly, adjusting his hat with a grim look that said he had no patience left for ranch dramas. "Jessie," he greeted curtly. "Got complaints? Your fences are down again. One more incident and I'll have to make a public safety call." "We're handling it," Jessie insisted. Granger wasn't convinced. Handling isn't enough if someone gets killed. He turned toward the stallion, narrowing his eyes. "Is that the horse?" Nathan rose slowly. Sheriff Granger, do not make a judgment you cannot undo. Elder Nathan Granger said politely, but if that animal injures anyone else, state law is clear. I'll have to authorize a kill order. Ayanna drew in a sharp breath and moved instinctively toward the paddock. Spirit Walker lifted his head as if sensing her distress. Cole watched the girl's small fists clench at her sides. Granger's words echoed in Cole's mind long after the sheriff left the ranch kill order. If Spirit Walker broke one more fence, if one more ranch hand got hurt, the magnificent creature he'd seen soften beneath Ayanna's touch would be lost forever. As the adults resumed arguing, Jesse calling it property damage, Nathan calling it sacrilege, Ayanna stepped between them, chin lifted. He's calling someone, she said firmly. He's not supposed to be in a pen. He came here because he needs help. Jesse blinked. Help that horse tried to tear the barn down last night. Cole felt something cold crawl up his spine. Ayanna wasn't guessing, she was certain. Her calm expression matched the certainty in her voice. He wants someone to follow him, she continued. He's not running away from us. He's waiting. Her eyes drifted to Cole as if she knew he was the one wavering. You saw it, she said quietly. You felt it. Cole swallowed. He had felt something, he just didn't understand it. Pride, experience, logic. They all pushed him to dismiss her words. But that flicker of humility from the day before wouldn't let him. That night after the ranch grew quiet, Cole lay on the Hawthorne's worn-out sofa, staring at the ceiling, sleep refusing to come. He kept replaying the stallion's stare, the stillness, when Ayanna approached the way the animal paced the fence, not like a trapped creature, but like a guide waiting for its group to assemble. Cowboys weren't supposed to believe in destiny or signs. But something about Spirit Walker felt like both. As dawn crept in, painting the ceiling with pale light, Cole sat up with a groan and scrubbed his hands over his face. Fine, he muttered to himself. I'll go. I'll see where this leads. He didn't believe in legends, but he believed in instinct. An instinct told him he needed answers. When Cole stepped outside, the air was crisp, the sky blushing with the first hint of sunrise. And there, waiting beside the fence like a sentinel, stood Spirit Walker. Ayanna approached from the opposite direction, already awake, as if she'd known he would come. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply nodded, then placed a hand lightly on the fence. Spirit Walker took a single step back from the rails, not to flee, but to give them space, as if saying, follow. Cole walked up beside Ayanna. What now? He whispered. We go? She answered. And we listen. The stallion started moving along the fence line, slow and steady, checking over his shoulder to make sure they followed. Cole matched its pace every step, feeling strangely ceremonial. Each flick of Spirit Walker's ears, each shift in its breathing, signaled something specific. Ayanna pointed gently. See how he looks left? That's a warning, something ahead he wants us to notice. And when he breathes like that, he's calming us, telling us not to fear. Cole watched closely, ashamed by how much he had missed. The tension in Spirit Walker's neck, the way he lowered his head when he wanted them to stay close, it was a language Cole realized he had never bothered to learn, a language Ayanna spoke fluently, without ever having studied it. And for the first time since stepping onto Hawthorne Ranch, Cole no longer felt like the expert. He felt like a student of a girl who listened to the wind, and of a stallion who carried secrets in his silence. The sun rose high over the mountainside as Spirit Walker led them into rougher ground, moving with the same steady confidence he had when he left the farm. But now, as the land tilted upward and the grass gave way to brittle sage and exposed stone, Cole began to notice subtle changes in the stallion's posture. Spirit Walker wasn't simply leading them. He was watching the earth beneath him, as carefully as the two humans following behind. Every so often he would pause, tilt his head, and test the air with long, slow breaths. Ayanna walked just ahead of Cole, her small footprint stitching a careful path through the dust. She touched the ground, often examining a cracked piece of clay, brushing her fingers along a tuft of dry grass or pressing her palm flat against a patch of disturbed earth. Cole expected these gestures to be mere curiosity, the idle habits of a child. But the more he watched, the more he realized each movement carried purpose. When they reached the first stretch of churned-up mud, Cole stopped short. "This wasn't the weather," he muttered. "This is machines." The mud was thick and dark despite the drought. Heavy tire imprints carved overlapping tracks across the ground, wide, deep, and unmistakably made by industrial vehicles. The earth had caved in near several of the ruts, leaving ragged pits where the soil had simply given up and collapsed. Spirit Walker snorted sharply and pawed the ground. "He hates this place," Ayanna said under her breath. "He remembers what happened." Cole frowned. What did happen? Ayanna didn't answer. She had crouched beside a collapsed section where the ground dipped inward like a wound. Her hand hovered over the fissure before she finally touched it as gently as if she feared the injury was alive. "This isn't natural," she murmured. "Sinkholes happen out here," Cole replied. "Not like this?" She brushed aside loose dirt, revealing the glint of something metallic. Ayanna pulled out a thin orange stake, the kind used to mark drilling sites. Cole's jaw tightened. Mining stakes. Ayanna didn't look up. They came here without asking the land. Cole crouched beside her and inspected another rut. The edges were too clean, the mud too freshly displaced. "This didn't happen months ago," he said quietly. "This is recent." Spirit Walker began pacing, circling the area twice before stopping beside a stretch of torn earth that sloped downward into a darker patch of mud. He lowered his head and exhaled through his nostrils, a low rumbling sound. "What's he?" Cole began, but Ayanna stepped past him. "He's showing us what happened next." They followed the stallion down the uneven dip, where the mud thickened and the ground felt unstable beneath their boots. At the base of the slope lay a shallow ditch. Ayanna knelt at its edge and gasped softly. Cole hurried forward and saw why. Half buried in mud was a drill hole wide deep and framed by discarded metal shavings. The opening was surrounded by abandoned debris lengths of cable, a bent drill bit, empty engine oil cans. Nearby lay a torn survey map, flattened against the ground, its corners stiff with dried clay. Cole pried the map loose, unfolding it with care. The paper was cracked, but he could still make out the outlines. Magnesium limestone veins. Water tables. He squinted. They weren't supposed to be drilling anywhere near here. Ayanna rose and dusted her hands off. Her brow furrowed. They didn't care. Spirit Walker pawed the ground again, more anxiously now. "He remembers the machines," she said, "and the fear of what Cole asked." Ayanna didn't answer right away. She pulled a broken signpost from the grass, brushing away dirt to reveal a faded logo printed on the cracked plastic. Cole recognized it immediately. Gravel Ridge Minerals, a company currently embroiled in multiple lawsuits across 3 counties for illegal exploratory drilling. "They were here," he whispered, "on this land, without permits." Ayanna traced the faded logo with her thumb. "Grandfather said this would happen. He said the land would warn us. And the land sent a horse." Cole muttered, barely masking the disbelief in his voice. Ayanna's eyes flicked toward Spirit Walker. "Not just a horse." Cole wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes, made him swallow his words. They continued deeper into the damaged area. The signs of human interference only grew worse. Broken branches, tracks from heavy machinery, mounds of overturned soil boulders that looked deliberately moved, and in several places, the earth had caved inward, forming dangerous shallow pits. Some held murky water, mixed with oily residue. Others looked deceptively solid until Cole tested them with a boot, only to watch the ground sink under the pressure. Spirit Walker avoided each unstable patch with uncanny precision, guiding them along safer paths. "How does he know where not to step?" Cole asked. Ayanna touched one of the collapsed edges, because he felt the earth fall under him. Cole's breath hitched. "You mean he was here when it happened?" Ayanna nodded slowly. "He came to stop them. To protect something." "Protect what?" Before she could answer, Spirit Walker stiffened and stepped forward, lowering his head toward a dense thicket. Ayanna hurried to the stallion's side and looked through the brush. Cole heard her inhale sharply. "Oh no." He shoved through the branches and froze. There, huddled in the shadows, was a small Mustang filly. Mud matted her coat. Her legs trembled with each breath, and when she tried to back farther into the brush, her hooves slipped unevenly, revealing the unmistakable swelling of an injury. Her eyes were wide, wild, and full of pain she couldn't vocalize. Spirit Walker let out a low guttural sound, half warning, half pleading. Ayanna, Cole said softly, "Tell me I'm wrong." "That's Whisper," she breathed. "Spirit Walker's filly." Cole felt the world shift beneath his feet. "Then all this time, he wasn't attacking us," she said. "He was trying to get us to follow." Whisper attempted to stand, but her right foreleg buckled immediately. Ayanna crawled toward her with slow, deliberate movements, whispering soft words in her own language. The filly twitched, but didn't attempt to flee. Spirit Walker watched every movement, muscles tense, but not aggressive, more like a father terrified of losing his child. Cole dropped to his knees beside them and reached for Whisper's injured leg. He expected Spirit Walker to lash out, but the stallion simply lowered his head close to the filly's flank, as if offering silent reassurance. "What did this?" Cole murmured. Ayanna didn't speak. She pointed. Just beyond the thicket lay a steel trap, twisted open teeth, bent metal stained with dried blood. Whisper's blood. Cole cursed under his breath. The trap wasn't for large game. It was meant to maim, not kill. And it was illegal. "Miners planted it," he said, voice shaking with anger. "They wanted to keep Mustangs away from their work sites." Ayanna stroked Whisper's neck. She got caught. Spirit Walker freed her. That's why he ran to the ranch. He was trying to find someone who would listen. Cole ripped his shirt sleeve, turning it into a bandage. He wrapped Whisper's leg while Ayanna steadied her. "Easy girl," he said softly. "We've got you." As he worked, Ayanna hummed a low, lilting melody that blended perfectly with the wind moving through the thicket. Spirit Walker's breathing slowed. Whisper relaxed. Cole tightened the bandage with practiced hands, realizing how absurd it felt that he had ever come here intending to break this animal. When they finished, Whisper stood shakily. She pressed her muzzle into Cole's arm. "She trusts you," Ayanna said quietly. "No," Cole corrected. "She trusts you. I'm just the hands she needed." Ayanna's expression softened. Hands matter. They led Whisper out of the thicket. Spirit Walker walked on the filly's other side, head close, body curved around hers protectively. The stallion wasn't the raging tempest Cole had first encountered. He was a father doing everything possible to shield his child from further harm. As they reached the edge of the damaged clearing, Ayanna stopped abruptly. She pressed her hand to the ground again. Her eyes widened. "Cole," she whispered, "come here." He knelt beside her. The earth was warm not from sunlight, but from something deeper. He scraped at the loose dirt and uncovered another orange mining stake. "How many of these are here?" he muttered. Ayanna found more 3 in a row, forming a rough boundary. They were mapping everything she said. Even the parts we were told were safe. Cole's stomach dropped. "If the ground collapses under a herd," Ayanna finished quietly, "they all die." Spirit Walker nudged Cole's shoulder, forcing him to his feet. Then the stallion walked ahead to a higher ridge and gave a soft, rolling nicker, a sound that didn't match his size or power. It sounded sad. Together, Cole and Ayanna climbed the ridge. The view opened into a narrow valley, a perfect crescent of green, hidden between tall cliffs. Or at least it had been green. Now half the valley floor was scarred by tire tracks. Trees lay uprooted. The stream had turned cloudy. The soil bore the bruises of machines too greedy to care what they destroyed. Ayanna whispered something in her language too soft for Cole to understand. Then she said, "They dug into a place they were warned not to touch. My grandfather told them. They didn't listen." Cole gripped the splintered sign they'd found earlier. The broken logo glared up at him like an accusation. And suddenly, all the pieces fell together. Spirit Walker charging the ranch, Spirit Walker pacing the fence lines, Spirit Walker refusing to leave, Spirit Walker watching Ayanna, Spirit Walker returning again and again despite danger. He was driving people away, Cole murmured. He wasn't trying to fight us. He was trying to keep us from coming here. Ayanna nodded. He knew the mining company was here, Cole continued. He knew they were hurting his land. He knew Whisper was injured, and he couldn't stop them alone. So he found someone who could hear him, Ayanna said softly. Cole looked at her then, at Spirit Walker standing watchfully behind them. "You," he whispered. "He found you." "And he found you too," Ayanna said, surprising him. Cole shook his head. "I didn't do anything." "You listened," she said simply. "Not everyone does." Cole stared at the ravaged valley, at the broken stakes, the collapsed ground, the poisoned water, and felt a slow burning anger rise inside him. This wasn't about a wild horse anymore. This wasn't about a ranch. This wasn't even about Whisper. This was about a land crying out in the only language it had left, and a stallion who refused to let its warning go unheard. Behind them, Spirit Walker lifted his head toward the wind. Ayanna turned her face into the breeze. Cole did the same. And for the first time since he arrived at Hawthorne Ranch, Cole felt something deep and unfamiliar. He felt the land breathe. The walk back from the ravaged valley felt heavier than the ground they crossed. Cole guided Whisper, slowly supporting the filly each time her injured leg trembled beneath her weight. Ayanna stayed on her opposite side, murmuring gentle sounds, half words, half something older than words. Spirit Walker trailed just behind them, close enough to protect, far enough not to crowd. The stallion's ears flicked constantly, still alert, still listening for threats among the trees. They had just reached the first rise overlooking the lower meadow when a voice sliced through the stillness. "Well, well. Looks like I ain't the only one hunting today." Cole stiffened. Ayanna froze. Spirit Walker halted mid-step, muscles coiling. From between two sun-scorched pines stepped a man with a rifle slung across one shoulder and a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Caleb Ortiz's sun-browned skin-patched jacket and an air of someone who had learned too young that fear could be a currency. Cole shifted his stance subtly to shield the girl. "Put the gun down, Ortiz." Caleb let out a low chuckle. "Relax, cowboy. I'm just doing my job." "What job?" Cole asked sharply. Caleb tapped the barrel of his rifle against his palm. "Protecting mineral property." Some folks don't appreciate how much money lies under this dirt. And that black stallion of yours, worth 10-20 grand alive. Maybe more. His gaze slid toward Spirit Walker like a hunter eyeing a prize buck. A creature like that fetches buyers from out of state. Ayanna drew Whisper closer, trembling but refusing to move behind Cole. Spirit Walker reacted before Cole did, stepping forward, with a lethal grace, placing himself directly between the humans and Caleb. The stallion's stance sharpened like something forged rather than born. Caleb raised a brow. Look at that. Almost like he's guarding you. Cole clenched his jaw. He is. Cute, Caleb said. But the truth is, land ain't sacred. Ownership ain't sacred. Money is. Whoever pays gets to decide what happens. Cole took one hard step forward. Not here. Caleb's smile thinned. You're on Hawthorne land, Mercer. And the Hawthorns aren't the ones calling the shots anymore. Cole's eyes flicked briefly to Whisper's wounded leg, then back to Caleb. For the first time, he felt something inside him settle, something steady, immovable, like a weight finally finding its rightful place. This isn't your land, Cole said quietly. And it sure as hell isn't your filly. Caleb shrugged. Maybe not. But someone's paying me to clean up this area, and that means the horses go. He started toward Whisper. Spirit Walker moved like lightning. The stallion snapped forward, hooves striking the ground with a thunderous warning. Dust shot upward. His bared teeth flashed under the sun. Caleb jerked back, startled enough that the rifle slipped a few inches in his hands. Back up, Cole warned. Now. Caleb steadied himself, lowering the gun into both hands with grim determination. I said, I've got a job. And I said, Cole answered, stepping directly in front of Ayanna, touch that filly or the girl, and we settle it right here. Caleb's stare hardened. Big talk for a man without a gun. Big enough, Cole replied evenly. For a heartbeat, neither man moved. Only Spirit Walker did, his bared neck arched, his powerful frame trembling with fury. Then Caleb broke the standoff, raising the rifle slightly, not quite aiming, but close enough. Ayanna gasped. Whisper stumbled backward. Spirit Walker exploded into motion. The stallion reared, front hooves slicing through the air as a roar tore from his throat, deep, ancient, and furious. Caleb flinched and fired a panicked shot skyward. The bullet cracked through the branches above them, sending birds scattering. Cole reflexively reached for the rope at his belt, ready to disarm the man. But Spirit Walker was already there. The stallion lunged so fast, Caleb stumbled and dropped the rifle, scrambling backward as if chased by wildfire. Damn horse, he yelled, slipping on loose gravel. Spirit Walker didn't strike. He didn't have to. The force of his fury alone sent Caleb running. The hired gunman didn't look back, crashing through underbrush as he fled toward the deeper forest. Only after Caleb vanished did Spirit Walker lower himself slowly, his breath harsh but controlled. Whisper pressed into his shoulder. Ayanna touched his neck, gently calming him with soft words, until the tension unwound from his massive frame. Cole let out a shaky exhale. He hadn't realized how close he had been to leaping in, or how fully he'd taken the girl's side until that moment. That horse saved us, he said quietly. Ayanna glanced up. He saved his family. We're part of it now. Cole felt that truth settle deep in his chest. Horses weren't powerful because they struck hard. They were powerful because they loved fiercely. By the time they reached the ranch, the sun was dipping toward late afternoon, and the sky glowed copper red. Jesse saw them coming and rushed forward. What happened? Where have you? Whisper. The man's voice cracked at the sight of the injured filly. Cole recounted everything from the mining stakes to the traps to Caleb's confrontation. As he spoke, Jesse's face went pale. They used my lower pasture as a way in, he whispered. They drilled through my land to get to the valley. Margaret stepped forward, slipping her hand into her husband's. Spirit Walker tried to warn us. We just didn't listen. Jesse swallowed hard. He looked toward the stallion, a being he had cursed, feared, and blamed for days, and finally exhaled. I was wrong about you, he murmured. I blamed the wrong one. Ayanna led Whisper into an empty stall, where sunlight filtered through the slats like warm ribbons. Cole followed with fresh bandages. Spirit Walker stood just outside the stall, guarding the doorway, as if daring the world to try again. Sheriff Granger arrived soon after. He listened to Cole's detailed account, inspected the trap and torn survey map, and cursed low under his breath. This is federal-level trespassing, he said grimly. Environmental violations, too. If Ortiz is acting for that company, they're about to have a very bad week. And the valley, Jesse asked nervously. We'll shut it down, Granger said. No one touches that land until investigators get here. Elder Nathan arrived with several members of the Red Feather tribe. There was no accusation in his eyes, no triumph, only a deep sadness as he surveyed Whisper's wound and the broken remnants of the land's peace. He placed a hand over Whisper's foreleg. She will heal, he said gently. Then he looked at Cole. Thanks to you. Cole shifted uncomfortably. Wasn't just me. No, Nathan agreed, eyes softening toward Ayanna. It never is. That evening, ranch hands and tribal members gathered in the yard for a quick, tense meeting. The air between the two groups, which had once been brittle with years of mistrust, now hummed with a cautious unity. Jesse spoke first. This land belongs to all of us ranchers in the tribe, and someone tried to steal it from under our feet. We won't let that happen again. Nathan nodded. For once, we stand on the same ground. It was a simple exchange, but in the history of the Hawthorne and Red Feather families, it was monumental. In the days that followed, Whisper began to heal. The swelling in her leg reduced, and she started to put weight on it again. Ayanna visited her morning and night, humming soft melodies as she cleaned the bandages. Cole learned the rhythms of those songs, even if he never quite learned the words. Spirit Walker appeared every evening, standing silently beside the stall. He never entered. He only watched, patient and steady, his great head lowered, showing trust in humans for perhaps the first time in his life. One night, as Cole stood observing the stallion, he found himself speaking softly to Ayanna, almost without meaning to. I used to think my job was to break horses, he said. Make them trust me. Make them obey. Ayanna smiled faintly. You don't think that anymore. Cole shook his head. Now I just want to understand them. Then you're finally listening, she whispered. Rumors trickled into town that Caleb Ortiz had been seen again, not alone and not empty-handed. As the whispers spread, ranch hands and tribal guardians began organizing night patrols. Lanterns were set on posts. Horses were kept in safer enclosures. The ranch, once relaxed and predictable, became a fortress of intertwined communities, preparing to defend something greater than property. On the fifth night after Whisper's rescue, Cole and Ayanna stood together outside the filly's stall as the sky deepened into violet. Light from the house cast long, warm streaks over the ground. Spirit Walker stood motionless under the dying light, his dark silhouette cut against the horizon like a sentinel carved from night itself. Ayanna leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. They're coming, she said simply. Cole didn't ask how she knew. He had learned by now that she heard the land's unease the way others heard thunder. He rested a hand on Whisper's neck, feeling the filly breathe beneath his palm. Then he looked out across the dimming fields where lanterns flickered like fireflies, where two peoples once divided, now stood ready to defend a valley whispered into existence by the wind and protected by a stallion forged from its spirit. Whatever came next, Cole knew the time of standing on the sidelines was over. The choice had already been made. He stood with the girl who heard the wind. He stood with the tribe who honored the earth. And he stood with the stallion who carried the truth of the land in his bones. Dawn arrived like a held breath over the sacred valley. The first pale light spilled across the ridges, brushing the tops of the sage and pine with a soft gold that seemed too gentle for a land that had endured such violence only days before. Mist clung to the grass in long veils drifting low around the gathered figures of the Red Feather tribe. They stood in quiet circles at the valley's edge, elders wrapped in woven blankets, children holding feathers and sprigs of cedar, younger adults with solemn eyes fixed on the horizon. No one spoke. Even the horses grazing in the distance remained unnervingly still, as if nature itself was waiting. Cole, Jesse, and several ranch hands stood farther back near the tree line. They said nothing either. It didn't feel like a place for their voices, not today. Cole could feel the weight of silence pressing gently on him, neither threatening nor cold, just expectant. Elder Nathan touched Ayanna's shoulder and guided her forward. The girl stepped into the center of the ceremonial ring, her small frame illuminated by the first direct beam of sunlight breaking over the valley walls. She kneeled, placing her palms flat against the earth. Her hair fell like a dark waterfall around her face as she bowed her head, whispering words too soft for any of the ranch hands to hear. But Cole didn't need to hear them to understand. Gratitude didn't require translation. Her voice mixed with the early light, with the scent of sage and soil, with the fragile peace that had settled over the valley only after Spirit Walker's desperate warnings had been understood. It was a prayer, but not the kind he had grown up hearing. This was something woven into the land itself, stitched into the breath of the morning. Ayanna lifted her eyes to the sky as she finished, her hands still touching the earth as if anchoring herself to something deep and ancient. The breeze did not move. Birds did not call. Everything stood suspended, and then, from the far end of the valley, Spirit Walker appeared. His black coat shimmered under the rising sun every step, deliberate every breath, visible in the cold morning air. He moved without hesitation, without fear, without being summoned. People parted instinctively as he approached, though no one had told them to. He was not an intruder in their ceremony. He was an extension of it. Spirit Walker walked behind Ayanna, stopping just close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath at her back. The great stallion lowered his head, the gesture one of reverence rather than submission, as if he too offered his own prayer to the dawn. Gasps broke softly through the gathered crowd. Some of the oldest elders pressed trembling fingertips to their lips. One woman wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her shawl. Cole felt a prickle crawl up the back of his neck. It wasn't fear. It was recognition, a sense that he was witnessing something so rare it might not happen again for another lifetime. Soldiers had told him once about watching ancient trees fall in the forest, or seeing meteor showers over deserts, moments nature revealed something deeper than spectacle. This was that kind of moment. Ayanna rose slowly, turning to face the stallion. Sunlight caught her eyes, and for an instant they reflected the valley's amber glow. Spirit Walker stepped forward so close, her breath mingled with his. Then he lowered his head further, pressing his warm muzzle gently against her open palm. Elder Nathan's whisper broke the breathless silence. He has chosen. The words were barely audible, but they echoed through the crowd, like a bell struck at the heart of the earth. Cole felt something shift in his chest, a quiet acceptance, a settling of truths he hadn't known how to articulate. He watched the small girl who had once walked fearlessly into a pen that terrified grown cowboys now standing hand in hand with the creature born from centuries of legend. Behind her, another figure approached with hesitant steps, Whisper. The filly was steadier now, moving with the careful confidence of an animal recovering from pain. Her leg was still wrapped, but she walked on it with only a slight hitch. When she reached Cole, she nudged his arm with her muzzle warm and soft and earnest. Cole blinked, startled. Then he smiled, resting his hand along her neck. Whisper didn't shy away. Instead, she leaned into his touch, letting out a faint sigh. "Well," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. He didn't try to hide. "Guess you're choosing too." Ayanna heard him and smiled over her shoulder. "She trusts you," she said. "They all do?" Cole couldn't reply. The realization hit him with unexpected clarity. For years, he'd thought his worth came from mastering horses, roping them, riding them, commanding them. But Whisper's gentle acceptance made him understand something far more humbling. Respect, not dominance, created the bridge between human and wild. As the ceremony wound down, Jesse Hawthorne stepped forward. He looked older than usual, but stronger too, as if the events of the past days had carved something new into his backbone. He stood at the center of the circle, surrounded by tribal members and ranch hands alike. "I've lived on this land my whole life," Jesse said, voice steady. "My father cleared these fields. My grandfather built the first fences, and I've always believed this ranch belonged to the Hawthorns." He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the valley. "But this land doesn't belong to one family. It belongs to everyone who respects it. And today, after what we've seen, after what this girl and this horse have shown us..." His voice broke slightly before he steadied himself again. "From this day forward, the northern acreage of Hawthorne Ranch will be designated as a protected buffer zone. For the Red Feather tribe, for the horses, for this valley. No drilling, no development, ever." A murmur rippled through the tribal members, shock first, then relief, then gratitude. Some of the elders lowered their heads deeply. One of the younger men brushed at his eyes, trying to hide it. Elder Nathan stepped forward and extended his hand. Jesse took it firmly. In every generation, Nathan said, someone restores what was lost. Today, that someone was you. Sheriff Granger stood off to the side, scribbling on his notepad. "I'll file it in the official report," he said. "Once this is logged, the company won't have a legal toe to stand on." The unity that settled over the valley wasn't loud or triumphant. It was quiet, steady, and deeply earned. Later that afternoon, Ayanna sat on a patch of soft grass near the stream, a leather-bound journal open on her knees. Whisper grazed nearby, and Spirit Walker stood farther back, watching the valley the way a sentry watches a kingdom. Cole approached, slowly stopping a few feet away so as not to break her concentration. "What are you writing?" he asked softly. Ayanna didn't look up. "The truth," she said. "Not stories, not legends, just what really happened. So when I'm older and when there are new people to protect this place, they'll know it wasn't magic. It was choice." Cole nodded. "A good story lasts. But a true one," he smiled gently, "that can change a lot more than a cowboy." She finally looked at him, her expression calm, grounded, older than her years. "Spirit Walker chose me," she said simply. "But he chose you too, in a different way." Cole glanced at the stallion who had lifted his head to face the wind. "I'm not the chosen one." "No," Ayanna agreed. "But you listened. Not everyone does." The wind shifted, then soft, warm, carrying the scent of pine resin and wildflowers. Spirit Walker inhaled deeply, as if greeting an old friend. Ayanna tilted her head, listening to a message only she could hear. And Cole understood finally and fully. People had stopped just in time. Nature had placed its trust where it belonged. And among every cowboy who had ever tried to break a wild horse, only one small native girl had ever truly heard the voice of the wind. The legacy would live on, not in rope scars or metal traps or corporate maps, but in stories written by a child with her hand on the earth in a valley that breathed again, and in the proud black stallion who stood watch over them all. And as the valley breathed, something else shifted quiet as a seed breaking open beneath the soil. Ayanna closed her journal and pressed her palm to the earth one last time, as if sealing her promise into the ground itself. Whisper lifted her head ears, flicking toward the distant pines, where sunlight threaded through the branches like strands of gold. Spirit Walker stepped forward, brushing his muzzle gently along the filly's neck before turning his gaze toward Cole. Once more measured steady, almost acknowledging. Cole felt the weight of that look settle deep inside him. It wasn't a command. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation, a reminder that the bond between human and land was not a single moment, but a lifelong vow. And as the wind curled softly around them, carrying the scent of cedar and new beginnings, Cole understood that this valley would never again be just a place on a map. It was a promise. Thank you for staying with this story until the very last moment. Your support means more than words can say. If you'd like more tales of wilderness courage and unexpected bonds, please subscribe to the channel. Your presence helps every story find its way home.